Happy Sunday to all of you 30-day challenge participants. And today we're going to talk about legs. I've called this class the long leg class. A lot of us have leg shortening, whether we know it or not, either predominantly on the front side of the legs or the backs of the legs. We can also be short in the inner thighs and the outer hips. So we're going to kind of address all of it today. A lot of our lower back issues that some of us have, either chronically or acutely, can come from leg tension. And I just wanted to show you just a little demonstration of if the fronts of the thighs are short, it can tip the pelvis forward. It can pull down the front rim of the pelvis, putting us in hyperextension here. And if the hamstrings are short or the backs of the legs are short, it can kind of overdo a posterior tilt. And then we have imbalance and distortion in our posture. And as a result, we have back issues. So we're going to work with the legs as a way to address not only leg tension, but any occasional or frequent back pain that you might suffer from. So you'll need a block, a strap, and then I have a couple of blankets as well. And we're going to begin in hero pose. So you can set up for that pose. It's a pose that many of us need a customized setup for. I usually recommend a blanket for your shins to be more comfortable. And then I also recommend something, if your sitting bones don't touch when you're in the seated hero position, if they don't touch the floor, put something underneath the sitting bones, and it might not need as much height as a block. You might get by with a blanket. So you have this second blanket here if all you need is a blanket. But if you have tighter thigh muscles, quadriceps, this pose is really going to be your friend, hopefully eventually, if not right away, because it will address a lot of that kind of bulkiness and tension that we often find in the thighs. So taking some time to adjust the alignment of the pose is really important for the knees. You want to see that your kneecaps are really looking straight ahead. Your toes are pointing straight back and your heels are outside the hips. You're not sitting on your heels. That's a different pose. So some people call it W sitting because the knees are narrower than the feet. So you kind of have this W shape with your legs. But what you want to see is the kneecaps looking forward. And if you're not seeing that, you can roll your calf muscles out to the side. You can roll the under thighs in the opposite direction. And then once you have all of that and your sitting bones are supported, press down on the soles of your feet. Align your shoulders back above your hips. And I'm going to turn sideways so you can kind of see the posture of the pose. We want to have a really nice long torso. We don't want to have what I call the pooching belly sway back monster, which is kind of this overarching hair and this pushing into the abdomen. So be careful of that. Point your tailbone down, pull the navel in, and press down on the tops of the feet. We try to drive the knees forward and down to really feel the extent of this stretch here. And breathe into it, of course. Some people have knee discomfort here. So if you are suffering from knee discomfort, it could be the alignment piece, which we just talked about, but you might also benefit from a spacer that you place. You unfold a blanket and just kind of run it from the backs of the knees towards the ankles. It's mostly about getting it hitting right behind the knees. And then you've created a hammock for your sitting bones, so you shouldn't need to worry too much about more propping underneath the sitting bones. You have some support there. And we'll just be in the pose another minute. This is a pose I know a lot of teachers teach almost every single class because it is so beneficial to our legs, to our backs. We always start our classes seated, and you might start sitting in this pose instead of easy crisscross seated position, just as a way to always incorporate the hero pose. Just another 15 seconds. So it's important after this deep knee flexion to extend your legs fully. And there's many poses that can do that. but we're going to follow this pose with downward facing dog, which will give us that full leg extension. So just begin by moving things out of your way, clearing your mat. And then today, I just kind of decided this, but let's take a couple blankets and fold them. And we're going to create heel support for downward dog, which will give you a nice sense of support so that you can really have a point of reference to kind of ground the heels into. So you'll start the pose with your ball mounds and toes in front of the blankets. And when you press up into the pose, the heels are supported by that blanket stack. And when you remove that element of kind of the hovering heels, you can find more depth in the pose, and you might be able to create a fuller extension in your legs. Think about the legs compacting from front to back. Think about your shin bones moving back, your thigh bones moving back, the flesh of your legs being absorbed by the backs of your legs. Extending all 10 toes forward as you drive the heels deeper into the blankets. Really open the backs of the knees, which is essentially why we're placing this pose here, is to counter that deep knee bend of hero pose. Three more breaths. Drawing the hips away from the wrists, letting the shoulders start to sink into more of a valley position than a peak. Here's a peak, here's a valley. And then on an exhalation, take your knees wide, sweep your feet together, sit back for child's pose. And if you have space between your butt and your heels, it's a really easy fix right now because you have those blankets there to create a connection with the props. And then again, you have a point of contact, a point of reference you can press into and just find a little more depth in the pose. And we're going to move on to our backs from here. Some people prefer to have a little bit of a support under the head so that your head isn't kind of chin waving in the air. We want to see the forehead and chin pretty level when we're reclining. You're going to want to have your block kind of off to the right side of your mat, and then have your strap in hand. And we're going to come into a series for the rest of this class of hand to big toe poses. We're going to do 5 different versions on each leg. And by the end of it, your legs will feel a mile long. It's pretty great feeling. So we'll start with the first Paragustasana, hand to big toe pose. Just grabbing the sole of the right foot. And because we're addressing muscle today, sometimes we talk more about bone in our classes, but because we're addressing muscle today and lengthening, we're going to slide the strap closer to the ball mound than the heel. So have your strap kind of closer to the toes than the heel. Wrap your hands once so that you're not wasting energy gripping, and extend your left leg. So the most important thing we want to do right away is to straighten the leg. And for some of us, that means the leg has to move farther away from the torso. Find your straightest leg and then find your closest leg. And rather than tugging on the leg, just find a deep tap root of your leg into the floor. Sink the leg into the floor, still yawning open the back of your knee, reaching up through the right heel, spreading the toes, pressing the ball mounds up as well, and targeting the belly of the muscle. So the center of the calf muscle, center of the hamstring. What we want to avoid is the attachment points of the ligaments behind the knee or down by the ankle. So if you're feeling it there, you're going to want to back off. You're still imagining your leg moving from front to back. A couple more breaths here. So the second version, Paragustasana, we're going to take Parshva, which means sideways. The block is off to the right so that when the leg moves out to the side, we can create a little bit of a support platform for the leg. And it doesn't have to be a block. You could use something soft if you prefer, like a bolster. I just know that more of us have blocks at home than bolsters, so I'm using a block today. Right hand is going to grab the straps. Wrap your knuckles again so you're conserving energy. Stretch your left arm sideways, and on an exhale, take the right leg as far as you can to the right, but without uprooting the left hip point, the left shoulder. So we want to keep, essentially, we want to keep the lower back evenly pressurized into the floor. And if you're finding that you're kind of rolling to your right, you might need to raise the height of your block. You might need to guide the leg a little bit back towards center to create that balance in your body. Because there is a natural flow of energy to the right, you're going to direct the flesh of your torso from right to left. Just trying to restore some balance in the body, which is really the name of the game in yoga. Yoga means union. We're oftentimes working with these pairings of oppositional forces to create balance. In this pose, we're stretching the inner leg now. We talked about the front and the back of the leg. This is a wonderful pose if you're feeling short in your inner thighs. A lot of us have various exercises we do or forms of recreation that we do that shorten the inner thighs, such as my daughter who rides horses has chronically tight inner thighs. So just equalizing those activities is important. So we're going to move on to Paragustasana 3, bringing the leg to center. And this one, the idea is to keep the right buttock against the floor. So pass your straps to your left hand, wrap the knuckles, conserve energy, extend the right arm sideways, find your straightest, closest leg. Imagine your right buttock is Velcro to the floor and slightly guide the leg to the left. Personally, I don't need to go very far to get a whole lot of sensation. This is tension that I carry chronically to my outer hip. I tend to run quite a bit as my favorite form of exercise besides yoga, which I don't consider exercise. But I get, as a result, some chronic outer hip and leg tension. So for me, this is my go-to to offset that, to equalize in my body. If you can go farther without uprooting the buttock, take it as far as you can go, but keep breathing. And now we're tipping weight to the left. So the idea is to kind of roll the flesh of the torso from left to right to equalize that. Meanwhile, left toes are pointing straight up. Don't let them roll and kind of be suggested to move to the left as well. They're pointing straight up. They're doing their own thing. Let your breath be a clue of if you're kind of in the right sensation target window, the sweet spot. If your breath is kind of ragged, that's a sign you might be overwhelmed physically. So find the smooth, steady breath. And if you can't, maybe back off physically. So now we're going to let this momentum carry that leg fully to the left. We're going to come into Parivrita Paragustasana, which means we're coming into a twisting version of hand to big toe pose. So now we do allow the left leg to roll to the side. We do let the right leg come all the way to the left. And we're really doing a bigger job now of trying to move the flesh of the torso from left to right. Think about the side ribs, the right side ribs coming back to the floor. Think about the right shoulder continuing to anchor back to the floor. Reach out through your right fingernails. This is a big twist, so feel your spine becoming more supple with every exhalation. Right leg is your straightest, closest leg, which might not be that your legs are perpendicular here, but eventually they will be. Eventually, your right toes will be on the same line across as your left shoulder. So keep gently guiding it in that direction. Check in with your breathing. Good, and now gently, slowly help yourself back to center, and you can pass your straps back to your right hand. Step your left foot to the floor and take your right ankle to your left thigh and just pause there for a moment. You can switch your straps over for a moment as you press your right hand against your right knee and just kind of test the springiness. A super springy hip means the hip is tight. If the hip starts to soften, you start to see that knee kind of not springing back, the hip is going to be more receptive today. So this is kind of a little testing the waters of the hip, not taking on too much too soon. So you might decide to stay here for this next bit. You might decide to kind of start to come into what we're about to do, but not fully, by cradling the outer right ankle and knee with your hands, in which case you'll extend the left leg. You might be here and just breathing and hugging the leg in toward you. Or if you feel like your hip is open to this, right hand grabs the straps, you lift your head and tuck your right forearm behind your head. Sit back on the arm so that you're inviting more resistance into the right hip, and stay for 5 breaths. Keep anchoring the left leg into the floor. After this exhalation, you can sit forward enough to remove the arm from behind the head and shoot your right leg back up. We're coming back to Paragustasana 1, just to kind of bring it full circle and feel maybe a little more depth here. In this starting pose, the leg is straight, it's close, and you'll stay 5 exhalations. We're going to tie in one more little piece here after those 5 exhalations. So you're going to drive your left leg into the floor. You're going to take a big inhale. On your exhale, lift your head, wing your elbows out wide, and bring your knee and nose closer together. 5 breaths. After the exhalation, sit down with the head, bend the right knee, just drape the strap over your belly and extend your right leg. I don't know if you can see kind of from my camera angle, but if you had an image over your body, you would see your right heel sitting down farther than your left heel. We've essentially grown the length of the right leg, which means we have to do the left side so that we don't need special orthopedic shoes. And you should by now kind of have a sense that you want to do the left leg because you want it to feel as good as the right leg. So let's do that. We'll start by bending both knees just so we can take the left leg overhead. And again, you're sliding the strap to the point of contact that's a little bit closer to the toes than the heel, but not right over the ball mounds. It's kind of between the arch of the foot and the ball mounds. Wrap your hands, extend the right leg, and then find your straightest leg, which means most of us have to move the leg away from the torso to find that. And then keeping that, the work is to gently guide the leg closer to the torso. But we want the straight leg as kind of the first priority. Tilt the chin toward the chest and just focus on your breathing. We usually meet a lot of resistance on this first one. The leg is not yet supple and pliable yet. There's a lot of resistance, a lot of tension, a lot of shortness. So just be patient and present and just focus on the quality of your breathing. Now the left hand is going to take over. Move your block off to the left now if it was helpful to you. Set it up at whatever height you think might be useful. And then you're going to reach your right arm out to the side. You're finding your straightest, closest leg, and on exhale, moving the left leg to the left, taking it onto the support. And then the work is really to restore weight to the right sacrum, the right shoulder, to roll the right side ribs back down. And eventually remember that you're bringing the toes up to shoulder line. So keeping left leg straight, can you keep guiding it toward the shoulder line? Give your breath to the left inner thigh. Finding where the leg meets the floor, really using that as a fulcrum. On the exhale, start to guide the leg back to center. And right hand can grab the straps. Wrap those knuckles, conserve your energy, reaching left arm sideways. Find your straightest, closest leg. This is the one where we're going to pretend that the left buttock is Velcro to the floor. So you don't have to move very far to get a good stretch to the outer left hip. What you don't want to do is sickle the foot. So if you see the instep of your foot falling, reach out through the instep of the foot. That's one way we avoid deeper sensation. The body's very clever. It knows how to slip out of those deeper sensation moments. So just kind of challenge that. Don't be aggressive, but reach out through the inner left foot to keep some integrity in the alignment. Deep breathing and just letting the breath cycle around the outer left hip area. Meanwhile, don't let the right toes roll to the right. They're doing their own thing, pointing straight up at the ceiling, as is the right kneecap. Keep magnetizing your left butt cheek back to the floor. Keep pursuing the straightest, closest leg that you can. Keep breathing smoothly and steadily. And now we'll let the momentum carry that leg fully to the right. We'll shift to the outer right foot. We'll take the foot to the floor or a prop if that's useful or needed. And then the work is really to roll the torso from right to left, to reach out through the left fingertips, to bring weight back to the left shoulder. You can look straight up at the ceiling, or you might also look out to that left arm, which will put your spine in a complete twist with the neck moving one direction as the lower back moves in the other. Five more breaths. Really lean into your exhalations. Empty them out. The spine loves to move on exhale. So really tap into the potential there. And now after this exhalation, you're going to help yourself move back to center. You can take the straps back into your left hand, bend your right knee, crossing the left ankle to the right thigh. And then free up your left hand just for a moment to do that little test of springiness. Pushing down on the inner knee and just releasing and seeing how springy it is. Maybe deciding you're going to stay here. Or maybe you're going to start to invite a little more depth, taking hold of the outer ankle and knee with your hands, extending the right leg and being there for a few breaths. And then if you think you want to try the strap hold with the arm behind the head, take hold of the straps with left hand. You can keep holding the ankle with right hand. Let out enough slack that you can cross your forearm behind your head. Sit forward just to get the arm in position, but then sit back and stay for 5 breaths. Letting your breath comb through the tension that's living in your left hip space. Keep anchoring into your right leg. Empty out the next exhalation. Inhale, sit forward enough to unhook your arm. Shoot your leg back up and split the strap into each hand, finding that starting Paragustasana, one fully extended leg as close as it can be. Nice deep breath. We're going to anchor into the right leg now. Take a big inhale. On your exhale, lift your head. Spread the elbows wide. Bring your nose and your knee closer together. 5 breaths. After the exhalation, bring the head down. Bend the knee. Step the left leg out nice and long. Move your strap out of the way. Unfold your arms. Close your eyes. Let go of any effort that's still remaining in your body. Every time you breathe in, imagine some small area of your body is becoming more expansive. Every time you breathe out, surrender your own weight into the floor. Sensing the feeling of new space in the body, new vibration and vitality in your legs, as if the legs have been soaked in ginger ale. The yoga works by using the medium of the body to influence the mind. And so this newfound spaciousness in the body is very suggestive to a similar sense of spaciousness in the mind. It's been said that our true selves reside in the space between the thoughts. So in this way, we come home to our true selves. We feel spacious. We feel expansive. We feel still. Your next breath, you're going to imagine your favorite color, and as you breathe in, let that color fill the entire interior space of your body. Moving out to all the extremities. And as you exhale, empty your body of that color. Let all the breath empty out. And let your body find its way back into automatic breathing. Start to wiggle your fingers and toes. Start to bend your elbows and knees. And then gently shift to either side and tuck your hands under your head. Make a little pillow. And with the goal to minimize unnecessary effort, find your way from here to seated without disturbing the body or the brain more than you have to. And once you're seated, join the hands together in front of the heart. Lower the gaze. Soften your face. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste.